Angela May is the New York Times Bestselling co-author of the middle grade series The Islanders with author Mary Alice Monroe. I talk one-on-one with Angela about the series and what's next for her and Mary Alice for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Angela May, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
It is wonderful to be back here with you too, Quintin.
I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are a New York Times bestselling co-author of the Islanders series, In the Search for Treasure, along with other bestselling author Mary Alice Monroe. And obviously, your middle grade book series, that is an instant New York Times bestseller. And of course, as we all know, that you are also the founder of May Media and PR, and also a former award-winning television news journalist, and a mom and a wife. And I know for a couple of weeks now, you've been working on another series for the Islanders. So tell me, what's new, what's now with Angela May?
Well, this is the season of book tour planning right now. So we've been working really hard on the third and final book in the Islanders series. And so now with it coming out on June 18th, that's the national release date, Mary Alice and I are working behind the scenes to plan out what our summer book tour will look like, and also including not just a summertime book tour at libraries and bookstores here and beyond the Lowcountry, but also including schools to be a part of that book tour, so to speak, but obviously doing those school visits in the fall. So it's really an exciting time. I love this part of the publishing life, of trying to prepare and connect readers and writers. It's so much fun, and it's really rewarding because you get to meet the kids. Kids are the best, they're very honest. And so it'll be really fun to meet with them again. Some of these kids are longtime readers, and so we're really excited to find out what do they think about this biggest, most perilous adventure yet in the Islander series.
What has that adventure been like for you as an author, co-author?
What has what? Say that again?
Yeah. When it comes to this adventure, Angela, what has this adventure been like for you as an author and as a mom and as a wife?
Oh, it's been an incredible adventure. I will say that many, many years ago, this was, when I was at USC. I was very focused on getting my degree in broadcast journalism. That's been my passion. And my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, asked me, if you could do anything, what is that one thing that you would want to do? And I said, I would love to write children's books. And that was just something I shared with him. And I always envisioned picture books, but it was that was just this whispered dream, but I had no idea how to get from that desire to the next step. So after a fulfilling career in journalism and the choice to leave and pursue something else with my skills, an opportunity came up to just take a writing workshop, which, Quintin, happened to be children's writing and publishing. I took this course, loved it, and then later started working with Mary Alice Monroe behind the scenes, helping just play a supportive role in the book tour planning and all of the publicity that is involved in her very successful women's fiction writing career as a novelist. And so, I've been doing that for so long, Quintin. I never thought that one day she would turn around and ask me, hey, I have this opportunity to write, a book for children, middle grade fiction. Would you like to do it together? And she really, in that moment, gave me an opportunity that was truly a dream in my heart. And so it was an easy yes.
Yes.
But Quintin, you and I both know that all things worth doing, things that you're passionate about, things that you want to do does not equal easy. And so there are tough days and trying days, but it's about learning and growing. And so it all of those emotions and experiences makes it very satisfying. And I'm just grateful to be sitting here able to say, I get to write books for children. I love it. I really, really do.
So, how exactly are you learning and growing now, despite the difficulties?
So a lot of what I've learned as a writer is professionally, whatever title someone has as a writer, it can mean different things. Some people are technical writers. Some people write for magazines. I come from a television news background, and that form of storytelling is a little bit different from print journalism. And so it's like ever evolving. And writing a story, a fictional story, is very different from writing a news story for television or print. And I mean, in the beginning, when we were working on our early drafts in the beginning of this series, Mary Alice was like, great this, great that, but you're still writing like a journalist. And so it took a little while to shake that off, and it took a little while to really truly learn what that means. And so I think I've been honing my abilities on all of that. But hey, whether you're writing one book or your 30th book, I think there's always something to learn. And that's at least what other writers who are far more seasoned have said, that every book is something new.
Oh, absolutely. So, Angela, how exactly do you write for children as a journalist?
Well, so I'll start first with middle grade fiction, because I do have some people who will say, well, what's middle grade fiction? So just simplistically, it is any story written for kids who are about in the 8 to 12-year-old range, or the 3rd through 7th grade range. You can write about any topic, but it's how that information is presented. And these stories that are written for children in the middle grade category are usually focused on your main character, who is about a 12 or 13-year-old, because you certainly wouldn't want the character to be, a 40-something-year-old me. That's not what the kids want to read about, right? They're learning about their world around them through the eyes of a character who hopefully they see a little bit of themselves in too. And so you are always telling the story from that lens, and also making sure that the content that the way you talk about it is also always thoughtfully aware of who your reader is. And that's what I've enjoyed really learning about middle grade fiction, because, I said just earlier that I always thought I wanted to write children's books, but whenever I said that wish, I just envisioned picture books. And then when I started writing middle grade fiction, when Mary Alice said, yeah, let's write middle grade fiction, I wasn't familiar with what the phrase meant. I was like, okay, what's that? But then as I started pulling, those books off of the shelves at the bookstore and the library, I had an aha moment, and I realized, oh, in other words, these are the kinds of books that I grew up with that truly sowed the seeds for my deep love of both reading and writing.
Wow. Which character in the Islander series describes you?
None. So the characters embody elements that I wish that I had. So the main character is a boy named Jake. And when you first meet him, he is, a single child in a military home. His mother works for the Air Force and flies C-17s. His father works in the Army or works for the Army. And at the beginning of the series, he is stationed in Afghanistan, and a IED explodes and creates a family emergency, forcing Jake to then go live isolated on this tiny little island. He is a very kind and caring kid, also scared for obvious reasons, and being forced to kind of go, to unfamiliar places. But he is a leader by nature. He just doesn't realize it yet. And one of his best friends that he meets on the island is a boy named Macon, whose daily life is much different from Jake's. And he is staying on the island. It's his family's second home. His parents, are successful attorneys in the big city of Atlanta. And so they come together from different life experiences. And Macon is super knowledgeable. I mean, he's the kid who loves cool facts. And so his wealth of knowledge and his ability to learn and retain.
Right.
I mean, I wish I could be like that. And then their other best friend is a girl named Lovey, a low country girl who, even though I am very much a low country girl and grew up in the Charleston area, I did not grow up being familiar with the waterways and getting out on boats. It just had those few times, right, that you got invited to go out on someone else's. And so Lovey is very knowledgeable about the wild around us. And that is something that I admire, that quality in other people, and very much would love to be this fearless, knowledgeable girl who is always ready for an adventure.
Exactly right.
So I'm sorry, Quintin, I gave you a real long answer to say none of the characters is me, but each character embodies qualities that both Mary Alice and I very much admire.
Yes, absolutely. So what are the cool facts about the Islander series?
Well, so my favorite personal cool fact is the setting. The setting is a small barrier island called Dewey's Island. And you may have known about this because I know you grew up around here too, just like me. But full confession, I did not know what Dewey's Island was until I was in my early 30s. And maybe the teachers talked about it in class and I didn't pay attention. But I mean, everybody's familiar with Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island.
Sure.
But Dewey's is a little bit more north of Isle of Palms. It is a private residential community and nature sanctuary. It's only accessible by a ferry boat. You have to be a resident out there and get permission to go. And the way they live their life out there is so different from the way that we live in the city or in the suburbs, or even out in the rural parts of the county. And when you go out there, it feels like a whole different world. Truly. There are no cars, no roads, no restaurants out there. It is truly you, the residents, and nature. Everywhere there is something wild to observe and to respect. And so that's probably the greatest fact is I love being able, through the power of story, that Mary Alice and I can transport kids, no matter where they are in the world reading this book, and they can feel fully immersed in this landscape that feels otherworldly, where, nature comes first.
Absolutely, absolutely. Since writing this particular series, Angela, what more have you learned about nature?
Oh goodness, I'm learning every week. I have to give credit to this brilliant woman. Her name is Judy Fairchild. She is one of the longtime residents out on Dewey's. And I met her many, many years ago, long before Mary Alice and I started working on the Islanders. I met her at a writing workshop, and she's telling me about this place that she lives. I said, this sounds unreal.
Right.
And it turns out she lives on Dewey's, right? And she is a master naturalist, a former middle school teacher, and she is a teacher by heart. Because if you hang out with her or you watch her YouTube channel called Nature Walks with Judy, she makes you learn more about nature in very fun ways and in bite-sized ways. Like, people like her who take the time to get you up close to the flora and the fauna out in nature makes you care more. She makes me look at spider webs on a dewy morning differently with wonder. People like Judy make me more curious about the birds even in my own backyard. So that has been, I'm continuing to learn every week through this role of being a writer, because a writer has to be good at observing and learning and collecting a lot of information and then putting it into a story in a fun, creative way.
Absolutely. What information did you and Mary Alice had to collect for the Allender series?
Oh goodness. Well, we did some research, darn it, we had to leave the office and hop on a ferry and go and be out in nature.
Yes.
We used Judy. She was our nature consultant for a lot of things that regarded Dewey's Island. Now, Mary Alice, by her professional and personal background, she is a certified member of her island turtle team on Isle of Palms and Sullivan Island. So she brought to this series an abundance of knowledge about beaches and knowledge about the life cycle of loggerhead sea turtles. And for anybody who starts reading the Islanders series, book 1 features a loggerhead turtle on the front cover. And that's because the main animal that we introduce our readers to is the loggerhead sea turtle. And there's abundance of other animals, but that's kind of like our anchor animal. So, we have to take our time to learn, but, you're grateful to have good friends to call and, and Google makes a lot of things easier too.
Oh, absolutely. So from book 1 to really coming up to Shipwreck, what is the biggest difference about the Islander series?
So, okay, book 1, when you start reading it, it opens with with Jake having this family emergency. He wants to be with his dad and go with his mom to be by his side at Walter Reed Medical Center. But she's like, no, honey, I need to be there for him. You need to be here with your grandmother. And it's the start of his summer. And he's thinking, worst summer ever. I've got to go to this teeny tiny island, leave behind everything I know. I'm worried about my dad. I don't know anyone out here. And it's this small place that to him really feels like the middle of nowhere. And Jake has no access to Wi-Fi because his grandmother, Honey, as she is called, does not believe in having such things in her home. So, put yourself in the shoes of any middle schooler. Most of them would be like, a whole summer, no Wi-Fi?
Right.
No way. But we watch a transformation. So Jake is learning how to be in touch with himself. Nature is what forces him to get out and to connect with the wild around him and the people around him, meeting his 2 other best friends, and ultimately their journey through, adventures and misadventures, and they accidentally steal a boat. And yes, people are like, accidentally steal a boat. I'm like, you got to read the book to find out how the accident happened, but it's legit.
Yep.
And they get sentenced to community service, which is they have to wake up at dawn to go and patrol the beach in search of any loggerhead nest activity. Eventually, Jake learns that sometimes in the worst of situations that there are silver linings, and he ends up having the best summer ever. Then when you transition to book 2, Shipwrecked, right, which is, already available in hardcover and paperback, you see Jake the next summer. He's going back to the island, but his attitude is different. He can't wait to see his best friends again. And he's starting that story off with, this is going to be the best summer ever. And so that is very different for each other. But in book 2, Shipwrecked, the new adventure is as soon as Jake gets to the island, he sees this newspaper article hanging on the bulletin board at the Island Nature Center, and it is about a coin, an old coin, a gold doubloon that has washed ashore, and someone on the island has found it, and so he's a treasure. The person who has found the coin is an old treasure hunter, and Jake thinks, where there's one old coin, there's got to be more. So he convinces his friends to spend their summer going on a hunt all over the island for possibly Blackbeard's old lost treasure.
Huh.
And so he has to avoid some island invaders and the original treasure hunter, who they nicknamed Scary Harry, and then also avoid the king of the island, and his name is Big Al, and he is not a person, but he is the biggest, baddest alligator on the island. So the kids have to learn. They have a few lessons to learn from Big Al, and while they're searching for treasure, and I can't tell you if they find the actual treasure or not. So can't give any spoilers, but it's a worthwhile adventure, I'll say that. And so then now we have book 3 in the series coming out, and that book is called Shipwrecked, the one that's coming out this June. And what I like to tell the kids when they ask at school events and stuff is, they'll say, well, what's it about? And I'll say, well, I don't want to give away too much, but what I can say is this, that the 3 best friends are back on the island again. And an ordinary day quickly turns into an emergency that forces the 3 of them to rely on their wits and their knowledge and each other to survive. And it truly is the most perilous adventure that our characters have been on. But I think that all of you will really enjoy it when it comes out. I'm excited to share it with everyone.
And this is probably a redundant question, Angela, but how exactly is all of this information presented to the actual reader, particularly as you just mentioned, the middle schoolers?
Well, so we have to keep a few things in mind that you don't want to info dump. You always have to have, start with action and a reaction, and every single chapter has to move that story forward to a very satisfying climax and resolution. So we try to keep keep the action going with great character development. We love that each one of these friends is very distinctly different from each other. But that's what makes their friendship so special, is that these are not kids who are birds of a feather, that they come from different life experiences, different family dynamics, and it's their differences that really bond them and make them stronger as a team. And that's more important than ever before in this particular book. And then the other thing I really love about this particular middle grade series is the publisher, connected us with a most brilliant illustrator. And she not only has designed every cover of this book, but she has read through each story and created interior artwork as well. So she has contributed her own drawings that she is imagining from our stories. And that is so cool to see. And I love that, because I do feel like for readers who may not be, there's a wide range of readers in that middle grade, age bracket. And reading is still hard work for a lot of people. And so it's nice to break up all of those words with these nuggets of images to help also reinforce what is being said in the story. But that's one of the things I really love about the series, that it celebrates both the written word and also the illustrations. I think it's a perfect marriage.
Yes. And when it comes to the Islander series, Angela, what else do you want to reinforce to the actual reader?
So I would like to say to others that, and I say this as a reader, I have always loved children's books, even when I became an adult. Just because you're 20 something, 30 something, 40 something does not mean that children's books are not for you. First of all, books are for to be loved by everyone. And not every book is a book you're going to love. I get that. But I, to this day, love some of, the current and old classic middle grade stories. There's just something beautiful about these satisfying adventure stories, seeing the world through that character's eyes. And I feel like young characters are very refreshing. It's very neat to see the world and read that story through their eyes, because children are really great teachers to us adults as well. So while we do write these books for 8 to 12-year-olds, for them to enjoy, for them to understand and to learn, they are books for everyone. And it feels really great when we're at like a book signing event or, just anywhere, and a mom or a dad or a grandparent stops us or sends a letter to say, we enjoyed reading this together. And that's what I really do hope that more people take the time to do, including myself, because, my kids are older now, so we don't sit down and read a book together every night like we used to. But I want to do that more. Of course, they can read on their own, but there is something bonding and magical about enjoying a book together. So I encourage grandparents, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, get together, or even older sibling sitting down with that younger sibling.
Yeah.
Enjoy a story together, because the conversations that books spark are really special, and you may not have had that kind of interesting and revealing and connecting conversation had you not enjoyed a book together. And I love that, hey, it celebrates the Low Country and all that each of us do love about the Low Country.
And lastly, Angela, what conversations have been sparked because of the Islander series?
The conversation sparked. One of them is kids saying, well, we have other ideas. We want this to continue.
Yes.
So, which is such a compliment. It's so great to see kids excited.
Yes.
And then other conversations that it sparked is with our educators and our school librarians. I mean, it is so cool when teachers reach out and say, our kid, we're reading this, as a class, and our kids are really excited, and our kids say, just one more chapter, and the fact that when we did write this, we were very intentional about making sure that in our world building and in our fictional story, that the place and the animals and all the facts that are in there are true, because you can use this book and series to help support as like curriculum enrichment, what some of what students are learning in the classroom in certain grade levels across the state. And so that's really nice. And that has sparked great conversations, and conversations among students who don't have access to the coastline. I mean, even if you live 20 miles inland, sometimes our family circumstances don't allow us to go run out to the beach and to go, step around in a marsh and know what it looks like and the animals that call that habitat home. So through these books, we're able to transport people there. And so it's really neat to see that conversation happening in classrooms, at libraries, and among families, and hopefully sparking curiosity in kids to say, I want to be like those characters in a book. I want to get outside and discover the magic in nature in my very own backyard, because it doesn't matter where you live.
Yes.
There is something to observe, and nature is a beauty and a wonder. But it's so easy to walk right by it if you don't take the time to get outside the four walls of your home and go and explore yourself.
And unfortunately, Angela, as you know, living here in the Low Country, a lot of us take the nature here for granted.
I know, you're right. I mean, we all get busy in our day to day, right? But boy, it sure does feel good when you get to a point and you look around to enjoy a beautiful sunset at the top of
Yes.
the Ravenel Bridge,
Yes.
or to go, down to one of our public beaches and put your toes in the sand, or even to hop on a county trail, right?
Right? Or go to Shin Creek like I was yesterday.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, all of that. We are so very fortunate. The Low Country, I'm sure you would agree, is a unique landscape in that no matter where you are in the Low Country, you can get to a river, a creek, or maybe the ocean, or a forest trail in probably 30 minutes or less.
Right? That's right. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you this too, and I know you have to go, but how do you look at the Islander series as a reader versus a writer?
That's a wonderful question. I've never been asked that before. So you've heard me talk about it from a standpoint as a writer. So as a reader, I look at the Islanders series as a a book that if I were reading it for the first time, I think, and putting myself back in the shoes of, being like a 10-year-old, um, reading this, I would love seeing like that friendship dynamic. I think that's really cool to me. And then the adventures that they have on this island. Um, it feels like magic, but yet it's nature. And I remember being that kid who enjoyed being outdoors, and I just think it would be a book that I would probably enjoy reading, because I think that when you do start that first draft of writing a story, writers aren't supposed to, or I'll say it this way. I can't speak for other writers, and I'm only speaking for my journey. That the purpose first was to tell a story that meant something to me, to Mary Alice, right? To us. And we did it with thinking of our own children and her grandchildren in mind, and not thinking beyond that. Like, it's just kind of like you're writing it for yourself. Something that's full of wonder and excitement and things that you naturally are interested in or care about. And then from there, when you see other people embrace it, when that book comes out into this world, I've heard other writers say it's like no longer your own, it's everybody else's story now, because the story becomes something different to each reader. And so that's what I think about the Islander series.
That's really really amazing. Well, New York Times bestselling author Angela May, thank you so much for your time, and again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me. It's always great to talk with you, Quintin.
Likewise, thank you so much.